Hi, welcome to another video on my modeling channel. Today I'm going to build a model of a Soviet self-propelled gun SU-122 from Zvezda in 1/72 scale. This model is very similar to the SU-85 I built some time ago, and just like the SU-85, this model is my part in a Groupbuild, this time focused around artillery. If you want to know more about other modelers' builds, you should check channels of Joachim from Jorama Modellbau and Marcus from Scalebench Plastic Models, where compilations of builds should be published. The model itself is one of the newest releases from Zvezda. That means that the detail is excellent and it would look very good if built out of the box. The instructions are very clear and the painting schemes are printed in color on a separate paper. Decals are also very good, but because I like to upgrade my models as much as possible, I'm using some aftermarket upgrades, like this photo etched set from Part and gun barrel from RB Models. I've also bought some decals from Colibri, but they will be used in the next video about painting this model. As usually, I start the building process by cutting all of the main components of the model from their spruce. The first modification I did to the vehicle was to remove its plastic fenders. For this purpose I used side cutters and then removed the remains of the fenders with modeling knife and a metal file. I also removed those extensions from the lower hull because they are necessary only if you're building the model according to the instructions. And to remove them, just like with the fenders, I'm using a side cutters, modeling knife and a metal file. The lower hull also has those two sprue remains which needs to be removed. There is also a hinge on the middle of the back plate which is accurate only for T34 from this company, so it also needs to be removed. Here's a detail I completely forgot about in my previous T34 related builds. The plastic fenders in Zvezda kits are much thicker than they should be, and along with them the side plates are extended underneath. When I removed the plastic fenders in my previous models, those side panels ended up being about a half millimeter too long, so this time I'm shortening those panels using a razor blade and a scriber tool from Tamiya. Once this was finished, I used a Tamiya P1000 sanding sponge to clean up this area. Now I can start working on probably the most complex part of this model, the gun mantlet. First modification I have to make is removing the plastic gun barrel because I have a better metal replacement. But before I glue the new gun barrel, I first have to fill all the gaps and drill a new hole where the gun will be placed. For filling of the gaps, I use Tamiya white putty. I apply it on the model using a spatula and wait for a few minutes until it cures. Then I remove the excess with a metal file. Then I drill a hole for the new gun barrel. For this purpose I use a Tamiya pinwise with a 2mm drill bit. The new gun barrel fits like a glove and it has much better detail than the plastic one. This mechanism that allows the gun to move is probably the most complex part of the kit. It was one of the things that was criticized by the Soviet tankers back in World War II, and we can see that the model is very accurate on this topic. Here you can see a step-by-step footage of how I did it. At the end, the gun is movable, so the operation was a success. The backplate of the casemate, which didn't fit very well in the SU-85, fits perfectly this time, and doesn't need any filling or sanding. Ventilation cover casted as a separate part is also a very big improvement over Zvezda's T-34 and T-34-85 models. Although the periscope is very nice in the kit, I replace it with a recasting of a Colibri resin part from their T-34 periscope set. I like the detail on this part and it looks much better in my opinion. Next, I mixed some Tamiya epoxy putty to fill all the holes for unused plastic parts. I like using epoxy putty to fill things like this because once it cures, it behaves similar to plastic and it's very easy to work with. Here's how it looks after all the filling. Next, I attach the exhaust pipes. You need to keep in mind that those parts have ugly sin marks on their sides, which were also present on the Su-85. I'm not sure if I'll place an aerial of this model, but I've drilled out the mounting for it to make the part more detailed. For this purpose, I've used a 0.4mm Tamiya drill bit. I also drill out holes for engine air intakes on the sides and top of engine compartment, because they are going to be replaced with photo-etched parts, which add a lot of realism to those details. After drilling out those holes, I connect them using a scriber tool and a modeling plate, and once they create a wide enough gap, I sand those openings into correct shape using a metal file. I must say that this is 4th T-34 engine deck I'm modifying this way, and I'm finally getting better at this. I use AK Interactive Black Widow CA glue for gluing all PE parts. I also used it earlier to attach the gun barrel. The big air intake on the back of the tank is too big to drill out. I've done it on my Su-85 and it's not really worth the effort. I'm gluing PE parts directly on the plastic instead, after I remove molded on details. While gluing this mesh on the tank, I need to avoid spilling superglue on it, because it will be very hard to remove it later. But it's not impossible to remove it. CA debonder is a very useful tool if you're working a lot with PE parts. It's also easy to use. You only need to apply it on the model using an old brush and scrub the surface for some time until the glue residue starts to come off. You absolutely shouldn't use a new brush for this purpose because the reactivated CA glue will glue the brush bristles together, making the brush useless. Now I can start working on the wheels. This time I'm using originals from the kit, or at least the majority of them are original. But to make this build stand out from my previous ones, I decided to try out something new and to damage the rubber rings on the road wheels to give them more interesting look. This was the first time I tried this effect on the model, and I'm pretty happy with the results I've achieved. To unify the surface of the modified part, I'm applying a little bit of Mr. Hobby Cement S on it. I'm also drilling out the holes for attaching the wheels to the tank to make them easier to deattach. Another thing I'll change in the kit are the idler wheels. I've recently purchased a set from OKB Grigorov and the detail on their parts is far superior to the one present on the plastic parts of the kit. Their assembly is also very straightforward. I just have to separate them from their spouts and glue them together using CA glue. I also have to drill out holes in them to attach them to the model. I just need to be careful not to destroy the part. Once this has been done, they fit to the model very well. The plastic sprockets from the model look very nice, so I decided that there is no need to replace them. I just have to drill out their mounting points to make them easily removable from the hole. Construction of the trucks is identical as in the SU-85. The wheels in the middle have special pins that allows to attach the trucks in a correct way. It's also very hard to attach the trucks in a wrong way, so this system is much better than the one used in the Zvezda T34. Once the trucks has been installed, the effect might look miserable, but it can be easily fixed using superglue. I cover the upper surfaces of the wheels with it and use some toothpicks to push the trucks down while the glue is curing. This way I can achieve a realistic sag effect and prevent trucks from levitating. I also glue the lower portions of the trucks, the road wheels, and glue idlers and sprockets to the trucks. This way all the components are connected in a one big subassembly. The vehicle I'm replicating has only one photo, which shows that at least two wheels on the left side of the hull has been replaced. Colibri Decals instructions shows that both replaced wheels are of steel wheels with inner amortization type. But the first wheel looks like it has a rubber ring, so I decided to use one resin half-spider wheel from OKB Grigorov and one fully steel wheel sourced from Zvezda's T34. Here's how the finished suspension looks like on both sides. A big advantage of gluing the wheels and trucks into big sub-assemblies is that they can be easily disattached from the model for easier painting, and they look very realistic because everything is glued together. Now I can glue together the upper and lower hull of the vehicle. The fit between those parts is very good. To replicate the rough cast surfaces on gun mantlet and commander's cupola, I use Mr. Surfacer 1000 mixed with a little bit of black paint from Mr. Hobby to help distinguish it from grey plastic. I apply it on the model by tapping the surface using an old brush. Once painted, this cast texture should add a lot of character to the model. It's a very simple and useful technique. Now I can attach the fenders. I don't have any professional PE bending tool because I couldn't afford one, but to bend those fenders I use a ruler and a large blade on a hard, flat surface. This allows me to bend those into shape with satisfying result. I also use tweezers to add battle damage to the mudguards. Because the photo-etched set was originally designed for Unimodel's SU-122, the front parts of the fenders don't fit this model very well. That's why I had to modify this part to make it correct. I usually try to keep damage to things like fenders asymmetric to add more interesting look to the model. I'm again using the 0.4mm drill bit and Tamiya pinwise, this time to drill out holes for handrails on the sides and on the superstructure of the vehicle. Those handrail attaching parts come from the photo-etched set, and although they might look hard to attach, the only thing you should be careful about, apart from losing them, is attaching them aligned with each other. After the glue has cured and the parts are glued correctly, I can add the copper wire, which will represent the actual handrail. Here's how it looks. 4 more to go. These were probably the last major PE parts to be installed on this model. Now I only need to add missing plastic details, like those armored covers that go on the backplate. Or those towing hooks. I was unfortunate enough that I lost one of those. Fortunately I had a spare T-34 kit, so I took this part out of it. But now I'll have to cast some copies of this part from resin for the future. There should be some kind of lifting eye on top of the gun cover. It's missing, so I drilled out a hole for it and made this detail from copper wire. The last plastic detail left to be added is the headlight. I attached it to the model and drilled it out to make it look more realistic. Now I can start adding some stowage. To temporarily attach it to the model, I use masking fluid from Amov Jimenez. It is very helpful for adding details that you don't want to be attached permanently, and this helps you to get the idea of how the model will look with added stowage. On my model, I decided to go slightly minimalistic. I added a shovel from the kit, 2 boxes, a jerrycan, a bag, a wooden log on the side of the tank, and binoculars on a tripod, which I think is a very interesting detail. This type of binoculars was often used in artillery units, and it would make sense that the crew of the self-propelled gun placed it on a flat engine deck for better observation of battlefield from firing position. After adding all those details, the model was finally finished. So now a few words for the end. First, I'm sorry about the downgrade in quality of audio in this video. The microphone I was using previously has broke down and I haven't had an opportunity to choose and buy a new one yet. That's also the reason why the video about painting of the T-34 haven't been published yet. I need to make a choice if I want to make that video with a bad audio like this, or if I want to wait so I can buy a new microphone. Secondly, a reminder that this model was being built as a part of a group build about artillery. So if you feel interested in the topic, then you should check channels of Joachim and Marcus, links to which you'll find in the description of this video. Lastly, I have a page on Instagram where I post more frequently than on YouTube, and where you can find some works I haven't been making videos about, so it's surely worth checking. Thank you very much for watching and see you in the next video. Goodbye.